With effect from March 8, Binance, the largest cryptocurrency exchange in the world, will no longer offer any Naira services due to regulatory issues in Nigeria. The company will stop accepting Naira deposits after March 5th and stop accepting withdrawals on March 8th because of greater scrutiny due to Nigeria's Bitcoin crackdown. And from London, UK, Atose, CEO KoinKoin Exchange, joins me on the show. Thank you for joining me today.
Good morning. Good to be here.
Absolutely. Well, cryptocurrency exchange, that's Binance, has announced plans to discontinue all services related to the Nigerian Naira. Does this foreclose further investigations into its activities?
I think it's hard to say at this point. There is no, as best as I know, and certainly information that's coming to us, there could perhaps be further investigations. There is some view that they're being fined. But there is no specific information around what's happening with their operations in Nigeria. Short of the fact, as you just mentioned, they'll be ending their Naira, any sort of Naira taking within Nigeria. Whether that means they're completely out of Nigeria, we do not know. But again, they're ending their sort of Naira deposits and Naira withdrawals. So again, that's all the information we have. To answer your question, I guess, is there more investigation coming? Well, based on what the central bank governor said, at the last MPC meeting, I think it's very possible that there could be, further investigations, and I'm sure the federal government would like to get to the bottom of everything that Binance have done or are doing, if you like, in Nigeria.
Well, while the conversation around Binance, took over the media, we're even talking about it right now. Some persons kept asking how it operated freely in the country without being licensed or regulated. Sometime SEC, that was last year, SEC issued, a statement saying that nobody should deal with it. It wasn't registered or regulated and all of that. But then looking at the fact that irrespective of this particular exchange still operated, and we have quite a lot of Nigerians, trading on its platform. Don't you think that's an indictment to the country's regulators?
I think it's a little bit unfair to put this on the regulators only. And there are a number of reasons why I say that. The first reason is around the world, there's not clarity on how to sort of deal with digital assets or cryptocurrencies, if you like. And different regulatory bodies around the world only just instituting frameworks by which digital assets and cryptocurrencies can be managed and regulated for retail consumption. So this is still new, right? And of course, unlike in other countries, Nigeria didn't perhaps, if you want to be more brutal, penalize or perhaps prosecute any of the exchange owners for doing anything in particular with the national currency, the Naira. So I believe this emboldened, obviously, a number of the exchanges who felt that as long as they could deal or perhaps have P2P boards out there that, different, persons or different Nigerians who actually want to use the service would use their service. And as long as people were using the service, that meant that there was some sort of support for the service. But in recent times, the SEC has actually come out and said and invited exchanges to get registered and become regulated. And my understanding is exchanges such as Binance, ourselves, KoinKoin, are looking to, put in our applications to the SEC and obviously, then wait for the next steps. Of course, unlike Binance, we haven't established ourselves in Nigeria just yet. We're trying to do that. And as of yesterday, we know our application to the SEC has been accepted. So we're part of the incubation program, and we're looking forward to providing, digital assets, cryptocurrencies, virtual assets to the Nigerian public under the regulatory guise of the SEC.
Let me come in here, Ola. Let me come in here. One of the things people say about cryptocurrency is its volatility and how that you cannot necessarily trace transactions and all of that. So if we're having a situation where some of this exchanges are coming into Nigeria and they want to be regulated. Are we sure that, we have the framework to monitor, to ensure and to see that the same things we're accusing Binance and other exchanges of doing, to ensure that these new people who come to register will not do the same things? And that, one might also want to ask Binance, fine, you're a platform and then you enable transactions on your platform. Don't you also have frameworks? How come you're not going by certain, probably certain regulations, like following the anti-money laundering rule regulation, or even, the CTL, looking at all of these things? So how are we sure that, registering will actually ensure that these particular platforms do not do the same things that these other ones have done?
Well, I mean, the conversation we're having now is considerably more advanced than the conversations we were having in 2020 or 2021. And to answer your question, yes, there is a body called the FATF, the Financial Action Task Force, and what that body has wanted for a while is the means to institute the travel rule for cryptocurrency transactions. So if I were to send you cryptocurrency, the world would like to know that it is I that sent it to you and not just my wallet speaking to your wallet. And to that end, we at KoinKoin are pleased to announce that we will be one of the first platforms that introduces an end-to-end travel rule, which makes senders and receivers of digital assets on our platform responsible, for ensuring that whoever sends them digital asset is named, and whoever they're sending digital assets to is also named. So this is something we're doing. It's not going to take away from the easy experience.
And are we also going to see, the case of limit? There's transaction limits. There's a limit that should come from individuals and the limit that should also come from companies. I mean, these are some of the things we're looking at, and we're hoping that, these things will also be done, it will be extended to these exchanges. But moving away from that, let's go back to, the crux of the matter.
If you don't mind, I'd like to give you 20 seconds just to embody that
Maybe
point.
10 seconds.
10 seconds. I spent a lifetime in financial services, almost 20 years now. And the bottom line is I have specifically put certain things into my platform, which allows there to be limits for transactions. And of course, as I've just mentioned, instituting the travel rule, which I'm sure the SEC and the CBN will be very keen to see, because it solves those problems, which I know they're very, very concerned about.
All right, so back to this now. What do you make of the federal government's stance against Binance and other crypto exchanges? Binance, for example, was accused of exploiting the Nigerian currency, leading to its free fall in value and some other things like that. Now, could activities on this platform have significantly swayed the Naira?
So I think, to answer that question, and I'd like to be as honest and as forthcoming as I can. Binance, when I first came across the platform in 2017, I thought it was a great platform. And part of what gave us our idea to build our platform, because we initially got our idea back in 2017, was largely what Binance was doing, but we focused on doing something specifically for Africa. Binance built a very robust platform. They took AML very seriously. Counter-terrorist finance was a big part of what they were doing. The issue they had was the fact that individuals can come, and once, as you mentioned earlier, crypto starts moving from wallet to wallet, on their platform, off their platform, it becomes difficult for them to sort of say, where's that money come from and where is it going? So that's part of the problem. In terms of the Naira, with issues that we have at home with regards to subsidy, removal, or whatever it may be right now, there are a number of issues that we have with the Nigerian Naira, import, export, how much are we importing versus what we export. There are a number of issues that Naira has. I think it's fair to say that. At the same time, when you have unfettered access to either a digital dollar, a stable coin, using the Naira, and you can price that digital dollar as you see fit, and it has absolutely nothing to do with the reference rate set by the CBN. It's okay if you do it for one day. It's okay if you maybe do it for 2 days. But if you do it for many, many years, the impact will be felt, right, on the economy. There's no way you can escape that. Now, in Binance's defense, I'm sure they never set out to do price discovery on the Naira. But by simply having millions of Nigerians coming back and forth, I've got this buy at this level, you've got this buy, sell at this level, you create this sort of if you like, bleeding, it's hemorrhaging of the value of the naira.
Let me come in here. Let me come in here.
Over time.
Are you saying that after building a platform, we could get to that point where even the builders lose power and cannot control or, put some measures in place to ensure that things do not go overboard?
No, that's not what I'm saying. You can absolutely control it. And what's happened in this instance has happened before with normal currencies in the 90s. There are stories where the pound, in itself was crashed by one individual. So there are a lot of things we've learned in traditional financial services that will aid us in ensuring that these things don't happen. The problem is when you have folks without traditional financial services experience trying to run exchanges or trying to, become masters of the crypto universe, you then have these issues which have been solved in the distant past in different countries. You have them cropping up in 2024 in Nigeria. So we don't need to go down that route. There is a way for us to have there are a number of tools we can have. We can work closely with the regulators. We can have daily fixings. We can centralize within reason a little bit more of how the operations around foreign exchange and the naira works, and how it can be done to ensure there's no slippage in, as I like to call, needless hemorrhaging of the value of the naira, right? So there are things that can be done to ensure it's fair for everyone. By everyone, I mean every Nigerian, and obviously participants in the market space, those who are coming in with FDI, and, investments, market participants, companies, international, local. There are ways it can be done to ensure it's fair for everyone. So that's the view that I have. And that's certainly what we are going to be doing with our platform to make it easy for all Nigerians.
All right, let's look at this now. Binance faces, allegations of terrorism financing, money laundering, tax evasion, among others. And this is not the only country where Binance activities have been brought under scrutiny. Now, having an illicit inflow of that's what the CBN called it anyway, an illicit inflow of about $26 billion through that same platform in the last year via unknown sources. I'm sure you would also agree with me that this isn't something to be taken with kid gloves. How concerning is this?
Well, I mean, it boils down to that simple rule again, the travel rule, right? So when we say illicit funds, we call them illicit because we don't know where they've come from. Right? So where does 26 billion come from if it's moved on the blockchain? Is it possible to do a forensic analysis to sort of, find out which wallets were receiving what funds and where those funds have come from? It is possible to do the analysis, right? And I'd like to think that, the CBN or, perhaps those who are looking at this case are looking to find out who are the folks that received these monies. Did the monies come into folks in Nigeria? Did folks in Nigeria send out that money? What analysis is being done to determine who owned those wallets? It is possible to do all of this because the Americans do it, and certainly there are different governing bodies and around the world who often look into crypto forensics. So it is possible to do it, but I think going forward there are a number of things that we all need to be cognizant of. So there's a big hole that will be left by Binance exiting Nigeria. It is pertinent in all of us, not just exchange owners like myself, but also the SEC, the CBN, to make sure that folks don't shift this entire operation to an underground sort of even more murkier than what we've had. It's pertinent in all of us to come together to find a way to, there are about 40 million Nigerians with interest in crypto. We need to be able to meet that demand in such a way that the Nigerians, get what they want, and the governing bodies are also comfortable that it's being done in such a way that it won't have any further impact on the economy. So we have to move very fast. We need to ensure that things are being done properly, and we need to ensure that any issues that we've seen in the past do not happen going forward into the future. I think it's an exciting time all the same. And I think, from my perspective, as far as we're concerned, we're happy to work with the SEC and the CBN to institute, a stronger framework for governing cryptocurrencies and also give Nigerians the access that they're accustomed to under those sort of safer guidelines, as I've been mentioning.
You know, you just answered what I thought would be my last question. But just before then, let me talk about this now. What are your expectations from this particular investigation? And do you think the federal government is going about it the right way, announcing a fine and then retracting to say, oh, no, this is not what it is?
With all due respect, one of the reasons why Binance was able to come in and do what it's done in Nigeria is largely because there's lack of control, within the financial sector in Nigeria. And I'm not going to take that on the current administration. I personally applaud the fact that the current administration has come out and is trying its best to put its arm around this. Right. The previous administration, I mean, I was very vocal then. We wanted them to come in to regulate, and they never did. But the current administration is willing to do something. And I believe they're doing everything they can with the knowledge they have to sort of solve this issue. And I think, the start has, been a little bumpy, as it is with most new things. But I think, and I'm very confident that as time goes on, with the assist of our company and persons like myself, I think we'll be able to put we will have a solution, to the current crisis. And at the same time, Binance, I believe, and I would certainly like to think that, their stopping of services may perhaps be temporary. And at some point in the future, when the dust is settled, perhaps they'll get another opportunity to bring their technology back into the country under the guises of, the federal government and its regulatory bodies.
All right. Thank you so much, Atose, for coming on the show and for sharing your thoughts.
Thank you very much for having me.
The Bank of Ghana has suspended the foreign exchange trading licenses of Guaranty Trust Bank Ghana Limited and FBN Bank Ghana Limited for 1 month, effective March 18, 2024. This move follows various breaches of foreign exchange market regulations, including incidents of fraudulent documentation within their forex operations. From Accra, Ghana, Patrick Baah Abankwa, financial analyst and investment advisor, joins me. Thank you, Patrick, for joining me today.
Thank you very much for having me today as we celebrate our Independence Day.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Okay. So, I mean, if we get done with this early enough, maybe we'll say a thing or two about that.
Yes, please. That's fine.
Okay. So now looking at the allegations, really, I'm looking at the words, these are weighty allegations. And then the Apex Bank called it breaching of the foreign exchange market regulations. I mean, that's one thing, including incidents of fraudulent documentation within their foreign exchange operations. Now, what more do we need to know about this?
Okay, so I think I will first of all want to spend a few seconds of your time to just mention a few things that the Act says about the licenses that these institutions are giving. So when you look at the Foreign Exchange Act 2006, Act 723, which was passed by the Parliament of Ghana, it says that a business entity that has been licensed in the foreign exchange market is supposed to do 4 things. 1, purchase and sale of foreign currency. 2, receipt and payment of foreign currency. 3, importation and exportation of foreign currency. 4 is lending and borrowing of foreign currency. Now, the allegations that the central bank is making against GT Bank and FBN Bank are issues that have been coming up for the last 6 months or so, which relates to some of the bank practices or staff getting documents from clients to do transfers that sometimes the documents turn out to be fraudulent documents. So that's one. Sometimes when clients receive funds from foreign currency into the home country, they tend to get or provide wrong documents before their accounts are credited. And as a central bank who is always in the process of assessing the books of these banks, as they go through their periodic checks, they sometimes see some of these anomalies, and if the bank is not able to provide documents to back the allegation that is being made against them, then leads to suspension that we have seen, which is affecting, in this case, Guaranty Trust Bank and FBN Bank. So these are the classical reasons why, for me, the central bank had to take this step. The issue of fraudulent, for me, is very critical because in the space of banking, what thrives most is the issue of trust. So if we find a bank not going through the process for them to be fined by the central bank and the issue of fraudulent document comes in, then it's something that we need to put our minds to very carefully for me.
Well, let's talk a bit about, some of these regulations and, why it's important that they adhere to. It's okay to say these are regulations, but it's also important to let people know why these regulations are there, what they protect, what they're supposed to protect. Let's talk about that a bit.
So these regulations are there to, for me, in my honest opinion, to do two things. The first one is that they are to strengthen the local currency of the country. So let's say the more people are allowed to transfer the local manufactured dollars or dollars that people got in from exportations out of the country without proper documentation, it weakens the local currency. So, for example, if institutions are using fraudulent documents to transfer dollars outside the country, with time, there will be shortage of dollars in the country, which will lead to depreciation of the local currency, which in this case is the cedi. That's the first thing that we need to put our minds to. The second thing has to do with anti-money laundering. If transfers that are done or inflows that are received are done without documentation, it puts the country at high risk when it comes to anti-money laundering. And that can lead to Ghana being blacklisted. And when Ghana is blacklisted, it means that companies in Ghana who need to transfer money outside to purchase goods for their businesses will suffer. And that means that the country will not be able to expand. So for me, these are the two critical reasons why we need to adhere to the foreign exchange rules and laws in this country. One, it's to protect the currency of the country, and two, to also protect the country against being labeled as a country that is not compliant when it comes to anti-money laundering. So documentations are very critical when it comes to assessing the viability of a country.
Well, back to the allegations now. I mean, it's a good thing that the banks we're talking about have their parent companies here in Nigeria. So back to that and what they could portend for the market. One would actually wonder why an institution imbued with so much trust would want to be involved in activities that could affect the integrity of the markets, like you pointed out. Now, how concerning is this? And, what are the possible ramifications? Or is it possible that this was an unintended error? Because when you look at GT Bank's, statement, it was saying that it wasn't a willful thing. I mean, is it possible for things like this to go on and then it's not willful? I'm going to tie that to what happened in Nigeria. Sometime earlier in the year, we saw EFCC raid some companies saying it's as a result of forex allocations. And then my question is, do companies allocate forex to themselves? That means the banks are involved. It's not the bank is just the commercial banks or even the regulator, which is CBN in our own case here in Nigeria. So I would like you to just speak to all of this, really.
So I think that I've also read the publication from GT Bank and FBN Bank in terms of their reasons and justification by way of explaining what happened. Most of these banks have units that are in charge of trade and foreign transfers. So these units have staff that have been trained to be able to understand how these things work and also the documentation that they need to be able to provide before transfers are made or inflows are received. Once in a while, you may get some of these documents slipping through because maybe someone did not do his or her work well, or there was some oversight somewhere that led to these documents not being provided or the right document being provided. So I would not say perhaps as a bank-wide operation, maybe there was a collusion within the bank. You may have some clients who perhaps will be able to provide documents that at the first glance of it may look genuine, but subsequently you find out that these documents are not as they ought to be. And that's why I think the central bank is there. The central bank is to be the third eye that will look at some of these transactions and bring up the issues, because if the issues are not spotted early and they generate into something bigger, then it can collapse the whole country. So I think that the explanation from GT Bank, to a large extent, may make sense because these are individuals, human beings working in these institutions who may sometimes commit errors that will lead to the bank being sanctioned, as we have seen with GT Bank and FBN Bank. But on the whole, I think that these banks should be very careful in the operations going forward, because when you allow these things to come up one too many, it begins to give a tag to the bank, and the bank will be seen as not compliant in the eyes of the regulator. And as customers of these banks, they will begin to ask questions as to whether the bank is competent enough. When this thing happened yesterday, I have received a number of messages and calls from clients of GT Bank and FBN Bank who are asking whether if they have a foreign currency account with the bank, they are going to be affected. These are issues that a bank will not want it to be coming to their fore in terms of their customers asking the right questions. So I think that it's a wake-up call for some of these banks for them to begin to put in place the right mechanisms and the right systems to spot every documentation that comes in terms of money coming in or money is going out of their system, because eventually the central bank will come hard on them, as you have seen today. And the more these things are coming up against a particular bank, the more it raises issues of integrity and honesty in terms of their operations.
Well, that's a serious one there, talking about customers. They always want to be sure that their funds are safe. But of course, the CBN has to do its job. Now, a few months ago, I said CBN. Okay, so a few months ago, Ghana's Apex Bank actually barred 8 money transfer organizations from offering remittance services without regulatory approval. Now, it also warned the public and other stakeholders in the banking value chain about dealing with them. However, sometimes when things like this happen, unsuspecting citizens who probably just innocently carrying out their duties do not clearly understand. Now, do you think enough education or enlightenment is done to let the public understand the importance of these guidelines or even regulations and moves by regulators?
I think in terms of education, there's a big gap when it comes to education. When you go to most of the banks we are referring to, or even most of the commercial banks in Ghana, they have some of these rules clearly pasted in their banking hall for customers to read. But it's not enough to just put something in your banking hall for a customer to read. The banks themselves have a duty in terms of educating their clients through workshops to understand how foreign currency operation works. The central bank itself also has a role to be able to educate the public on how these things work. Because if you don't educate people, for example, if you don't educate a customer to know that if I go to a bank to do a transfer, I need document A, B, C, D. And if I provide the wrong document, these are the repercussions that will be on me as a customer and also as the bank. Then people will begin to do things. And when the issues come up by way of sanctions, everybody is taken aback. So, for example, what has happened now, many people do not even understand what it means. So the more we educate people through, on the bank level, interaction with their customers, then on the central bank level, also educating through their learning and development portals, I think that will be able to help people to understand how some of these things happen. And the more we educate people, the more people get to understand the operations of the foreign exchange market, then the right rules will be applied. Because if we know that I'm going to provide a wrong document and that can lead to the collapse of a bank, then people will be careful in the kind of information they give out there and also the documents that they give out by way of evidence for inflows that they are receiving or transfer that they need to make for the purchase of items outside.
All right, let's take a critical look at the foreign exchange markets in Ghana. Just before we close, talk to us about the dynamics so far.
So the foreign exchange market in Ghana, I mean, you look at the main dealers, we are the banks themselves. We have the foreign bureaus who are also into micro exchange of foreign currency. Then we have what we call the unofficial market, which we call in Ghana black market. I don't know how you call it in Nigeria, but that's people that do the change of dollars and foreign currencies outside the financial system. So they do it in the marketplaces, they do it at certain locations. When you find out that most of these black market people that we are talking about, that is where sometimes chunk of the transfers happen. And when we allow that to happen over time, we realize that they are able to spark speculation in the system. And once they spark speculation, the banks are forced to follow because they have enough of the foreign currency that people need to be able to do the trading. And that's where central bank is very keen in terms of the regulations now. So over the last 1 year or 2 years, a lot of these institutions that are not going by the rules in terms of how much dollars can you sell to your customer, what documents should the customer bring before they get dollars, they are being kept out of the system. And the more central bank goes on to do that, the more it brings a bit of sanity in the financial system. But they now have to look at what can we do to be able to look at the black market, the unofficial market, where some of these deals are still going on without documentation, and it goes on to weaken the currency of the country.
All right, thank you so much, Patrick Abankwa. Well, we do not have enough time to talk about the independence, but of course, congratulations to you and congratulations to Ghana.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, that's it on this edition of Business Edge. Thank you for watching. I am Perpetua Fasanmi-Peter.